Welcome, welcome to the afterlife, or a little less spooky, like because these vampires are like super unspooky, but
They're more shiny.
more shiny.
Yeah.
On the more glamorous side of vampires.
Oh man. Well, welcome to the 800s. I am your co-host Alan with my co-host Adam. I'm stepping in for Alex tonight. He couldn't make it, and that's all right because I am interested in talking about the book we read uh, last last
Yeah,
month.
should be a good discussion. Considering I think we all had some connotations going into this book, so
Uh huh. Uh huh.
see how it goes. Anyway, plugs. You probably heard some music if you joined us before our faces showed up. That was Fearless First by Incompetech. If you want to check out other options from Incompetech, head over to filmmusic.io, where you can find scores from all sorts of artists, including into Compotech, and download slash buy whatever you find interesting, such as Fearless First. If you'd like to assist us with paying the bills, you should head over to patreon.com slash 100% sure how those links work. There's a link below the video
Yep. Yep.
for our Patreon there. Patreon is our primary way of how we keep the lights on. So you should check it out. $2 a month gets you into the lowest tier, which lets you vote on what book we read next. Also, paying the bills is Etsy, dmstable.com/Etsy. Thanks for the link, DM's Table there. I was pretty sure that was the link, but I wasn't going to say it and be wrong. So,
That's all right.
dmstable.com/Etsy for your nerd items, nerd collectible memorabilia, and cool nerd stuff. Otherwise, what else we got? Brain is blanking hard
Facebook and
tonight. How
Twitter.
do I plug? Yeah. If you'd like to reach out to us on our socials, we have a Facebook account and an X Twitter account. Get
Yeah.
it? Because X is used to be Twitter, so it's X Twitter, but it's actually called X. Loop around. Get. No? Okay. We're at the DMs table on Facebook and at DMs table on X. If you want a more intimate discussion, hit us up for our Discord server link. You can reach out to us on either of our socials, and we'll get you the link to our Discord where we talk all things nerdy, not just books. Otherwise, you should check out our YouTube channel. We are the DMs table on YouTube. The link is below your video. Excuse me. We post all of our videos on YouTube, not just our book chats. So if you're looking for what else we've done, you can check out YouTube. Whew. Audible is a cool audiobook company that releases a ton of books and is the leader in the industry. It is my preferred method for listening to these books. You should check it out. And if you want 1 month free, head over to dmstable.com/audible for a 1 month free subscription. If you'd like to know more about what we do, head over to dmstable.com to find out all of the information about everything I've just kind of rattled off, as well as more information for you. That's about it for plugs, I hope. I think. I'm pretty sure.
That's all right. All right. So tonight we are talking about Twilight by Stephenie Meyer. This book is I mean, if you're a millennial, you've probably read this book or heard this book talked about in positive or negative connotations. This is the book with sparkly vampires in it, and tonight we will be discussing it in detail.
Yes. If this is your first time joining us on this show, I'll give you a quick rundown of how we work. um, we are a discussion forum. So, what that means is Alan and I will pose a topic or question for discussion. Chat anytime during the discussion. Feel free to throw out what you think about the topic or question. And while Alan and I are giving our own, ugh, man, I am slaughtering this tonight.
That's all
Alan
right.
and I will give our own thoughts on the topic or question to give you guys in chat the opportunity to add your thoughts. And then once we're done discussing our thoughts, we will head over to chat, see what you guys have to say, throw out any sort of comments that we see, and discuss what you have to say about it, as well as look for topics or questions that you guys have. So at any time that you have a topic or question regarding Twilight, feel free to throw it into chat. Alan and I will be on the lookout for that, and we'll grab it and throw it up for chat and ourselves to discuss once the next break occurs. So the best way that this works is with audience participation.
And last but not least, this show is not a kids show. Uh, we we usually talk about adult topics, read adult books, and sometimes we read kids books. But in this show, we require respect to be given to everybody. Not everybody's viewpoints are popular, but that doesn't mean that we need to be rude. So, in summation, bring your kids around at your own risk and be nice or fuck off.
Oh, that's a dad disclaimer right there.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Yeah,
Plug your kids'
that's
ears real
right.
quick. Be
Earmuffs.
nice or fuck off. With that, let's get right into the chat. What were your first impressions of Twilight?
Ooh, okay. So I read this book back in high school. Um, so I did have some ideas on what to expect going into it. But trying to keep a fresh mind, I my initial thoughts were very flowery prose. Not a big fan of how inefficient uh, her usage was, at least at the start. And you're going to get a first person point of view, which I know can be interesting for some people to read. Um, Other than that, yeah, I mean, it starts off kind of slow, so I didn't have a ton of strong first impressions. How about you?
Yeah, this was obviously a reread for me. I had physically read Twilight way back when it came out, um, and then listened to the audiobook this time. But for me, it's long enough of a time gap had occurred where I remembered practically nothing of it. So it's like the first time. And jumping right into the book, it does have like a very teeny vibe, in my opinion. It hits you right off the bat with that
Angst.
teen mindset,
Yeah. Deep
with
angst.
Bella's opinion on her name, and her feelings about going to school and moving to Forks. It feels very teen.
Yep. Demanding to be an adult.
Kudos, yeah,
The
kudos to
audacity for her to be like, "I take care of my mom. Nobody, She wouldn't
Yeah,
be able to be an adult without me.
such a teenager point of view to have that mindset. I take care of my mom, but I'm leaving. So,
Yeah, yeah.
she
She's got
I don't
food.
know what she's gonna do. Anyway, though, kudos to Stephenie Meyer to be able to step into that teen mindset and really set the scene
I believe
for Bella's perspective.
this is her first book, is it not? Her first
I believe so, yes.
officially published. For this being someone's first book, I can certainly respect the attempt. You know, the prose is not my favorite. Um, and I think that in fact I know that she kind of fits into a more comfortable writing style into the future. But it was kind of nice to come back and see where she like starts from. Kind of like Elantris, right? With Brandon Sanderson. Obviously, the caliber of writer is different there. But she had a starting point, and it was kind of cool to see like, okay, this is the marble that was being worked on before she became like a more established writer.
Yeah. And breaking with the not talking about the rest of the series, I do think just for a second it's worth to step out of that and talk about the other three books in the series. Um, you do see Meyer change her writing a little bit, I think, as the series grows. Um, Especially I think between Twilight and New Moon, she takes kind of a left field approach to New Moon, and yes, plus a novella that's in between Twilight and New Moon, and Eclipse and Breaking Dawn. Um, there are half step books in there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but she definitely, I think, takes criticism of her book and applies it to her future books.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. So, let's see. Let's get into very quickly because we're talking about the start of the book. What did you feel about the hook at the start, and how did you feel um afterwards with the kind of world building? How did you feel about how she kind of kicked that all off?
Um, to kind of focus in on the world building aspect here, I think you've got two fronts. You've got the setting in Forks, the setting in um, around the town of Forks, as well as uh, introducing the reader to the supernatural side of the story, which, in my opinion, is kind of the more interesting aspect here. But I did like uh, how Meyer kind of gives you that small town vibe with Charlie knowing everybody in the school and being like, "Oh yeah, I met this one boy," and Charlie goes, "Oh yeah, so and so's kid. Yeah, he's a good kid.
Yeah,
Never had to pull him over for drunk driving or dumb shit like that."
yeah,
um, I did like that small town setting. I think Meyer did a really good job of fleshing out the town and giving you that vibe. The supernatural aspect, I think, I liked how it was like, oh, by the way, there's also this dark side to Forks that you don't hear about in the day to day, and here there be monsters that sparkle.
Yeah, I think she did a great job of establishing a fiction in a believable like modern world, right? Like she didn't need high fantasy or anything like that. She established a location that is very believable, and being from a small town, very relatable in many ways. Um, I think she I think she established the supernatural side of things kind of slowly, too slowly, and then rushed to kind of fit it all in as things happen. Um, a good example would be like the conversations in the Grove, or um, the rush of information coming when she's on the lam near the end, on like how
Yeah.
transformation happens and stuff like that. Granted, that information is handed out on a need to know basis, um, and I wish it would have been less like packed into one area and more like strewn across the story. She definitely had a lot of space in this book. Um, the the uh, plot points, the beats in the story, I felt like they were spread out, not in a bad way, but she had space to do more explanation. A good example would have been like more more information given during the research when she was looking up vampires. Stuff like that could have helped flesh more out um, the rumors around that. I did appreciate the kind of ham-fisted, because it is a teen book, kind of ham-fisted league lines leading into the wolves, the shapeshifters, and yeah,
What did you to jump away from
yeah, go
the
for it.
beginning and just go straight to the end here. Character growth. What did you think about character growth in this book?
Character growth. That's a really good question. Um, I don't know that I feel like Bella made a large growth in character. I could be wrong, and I'd certainly be willing to hear others' point of view on it. But did she fundamentally change? No. She got bit on the hand, and she's got a silver mark from it. Uh, did did her perspective on vampires change? No. If anything, it might have deepened a little more in a weird way. Um, I felt like the growth that we might have superficially felt is really just a slow uncovering on who Bella is, and not really a change in character, but that character was just there and hadn't been described yet. Um, how about you?
Yeah, I definitely agree with like the what you said about Bella's character being uncovered throughout the book. It did I definitely got vibes of like, she's a new girl who doesn't really know how to behave in her new society yet. And then as she starts to get more comfortable, she starts to develop a personality, and that kind of solidifies more and more throughout the book. Um, I was not impressed with any sort of change in character in this book.
Yeah.
The only thing I really picked up on was uh, Bella. Edward seemed to be Edward throughout the book.
Hmm.
He didn't really change. If anything, he just kind of dropped his uh overly chivalrous mentality and in favor of listening to Bella instead of just doing what he thought was best. Um, that might be more of a later in the series thing too, but for Bella, she definitely it, for what I picked up on Bella's change is at the beginning her not really desiring to live in Forks, but doing so for the sake of her mother. And then at the end, she was like, I want to live in Forks for me, not for my mother.
That's fair.
Um,
That's such a
it, in my,
subtle shift though. And
yeah,
really it's not a change of character, it's just a change of wants. I mean,
yeah.
you
In my,
could
like I was saying though, it's like,
yeah.
in my opinion, it's a really weak
Yeah,
change of character.
absolutely.
Um, but I definitely think it's something that should be noted that it went from I'm not thinking of myself to I'm thinking of myself.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. That's fair. That's fair. Uh yeah, I so what do you think of this book? Because this book is a teen book, we do have to give it certain kind of like wiggle room, right? Because it's written for a specific audience, and it's not necessarily written for adults with the plots that we're used to. Um, uh, this could have easily been in a KOTOR, but was more geared for teens. Where are you on like just the the quality of plot?
um, that's a toughie here because this book, in my opinion, isn't really a plot book. It's more it's a mystery without a crime, so to speak. It's uncovering the secret aspect of Forks.
Sure.
Um, and then they threw in a plot. Myers threw in a plot at the end to be like, "Oh yeah, this is I gotta hook you for the rest of the series."
Do you do you think it was a good series beginning book? You know what I mean? Like we've read books in the past where this is clearly a setup book. You know what I mean? Do you feel like this
Yeah.
was a setup book?
Um. Yeah. Just because at the end we have a lot of what could happen next. If you get my meaning about like Bella wants to be a vampire with Edward, and Edward doesn't want her to be a vampire.
Mm-hmm.
It feels very much like, oh, what's going to happen next there? Is Bella going to be able to keep her romance alive and not jeopardize the friends she's made along the way? Um, is there going to be any repercussions for the murder that they committed in Florida or Arizona? It's not Florida.
Yeah.
But back to your original question. There was an original question,
Yeah,
right?
the
Yeah,
the
there's
original
totally
question was the your
original.
thoughts on the plot. Um,
Yeah. Um, I didn't particularly care for the plot in this book because it felt like there was a beginning plot of figure out who Edward is, and an end plot of don't die because there's this vampire who wants to kill you for
mhm.
random reasons that got thrown in halfway through the book.
Yeah. It looks like Eliane never felt like they read the book for Bella's character development, but wanted to know more about the story and to discover the mystery of vampires. So it sounds like uh, they're reading it for like maybe world building, um, and a bit of of the story. Um, Elpak's Bella's blandness of character might be intentional. Um, that's a good point. That is a good point that Elpak brings up. That leaving space in Bella's character could allow for space for the reader to apply themselves as a way to be like more in the story. That's an interesting insight. I could see that being a unintentional effect. I don't think that Stephenie necessarily did that intentionally, but with that perspective, I could see that. I certainly could.
Yeah, I definitely um
It's a good insight nonetheless.
yeah, with what Ali Ann said, um yeah, this book for me wasn't very interesting character wise, but it was interesting to see, this new take on vampires,
Yeah.
and how would a vampire survive in modern day without going on killing sprees and avoiding the sun and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
That stuff was what I found interesting about Twilight, is the mystery behind the vampires.
Yeah. That's so
Um,
that's for me, I remember my original read through back when I was target demographic, right? Well, not quite target demographic. I
back
was
when
in
you were
that
the right
age.
age.
I was in the age group, right? And I remember reading this and being like, "This is good. This is interesting." Like, it wasn't like, "Oh my god, this is the best book I've ever read." But back then I wasn't a big reader, and I ended up reading the entire series, and I didn't regret it. In fact, by the end, I remember staying up late reading the book, and just enjoying it. Um, the the trouble I have now, though, being outside of the target area, is there isn't much there. Um, I mean, the audiobook itself is something like 16 hours or something to that effect, and I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot of time for such a flat book. Um, I mean, yeah, not the target demo. Um, there was a lot of like inefficient word usage that could have really added to the plot or moved the plot along a little faster. I think in all honesty, this book could have been just moved a little quicker story wise. Like, not scenes didn't need to be cut. The scenes themselves were good scenes. It just took too long to get through each scene. So it could have been shrunken or added, shrunken and then added to create more depth uh, in that part that it seems like everybody likes, is the mystery around vampires and the vampiric lore, right? The
Yeah.
culture and stuff like that. So yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, I read all four books
Mhm.
way back when,
Mhm.
and I enjoyed them at the time. I didn't enjoy the movies that came out, but I did enjoy
Sure.
the books. And going through this time, I was like, gosh, what was I thinking? Like,
Yeah.
there's no depth here.
Yeah. Well,
um,
also the perspective is interesting, right? It's relatable as a teen, but then looking at it from an adult, uh, especially like a parental perspective, is like the audacity here. Like the just like man, that you're close, but you are not quite there. You don't quite get it.
yeah. So here's a question
Hmm.
that Ali Ann kind of just answered, but curious what would you have done differently if you were the author?
So I wouldn't have written it in first person. I think that would have solved a massive part of this book. Personally, first person becomes a restrictive thing that can be really good in things like mystery novels or um, uh, yeah, mystery novels. That's pretty that's pretty much all I can think of that first person's a good usage for. Um, where you can hide details because the person who's the main character doesn't know those details yet. I don't think those details necessarily needed to be hidden. I mean, the the pretense of the book is on the back cover, so we know there's vampires. It, you know, I I could see it moving a lot better with Alien's idea of like a dual perspective or even a like third person perspective changing point like character following, kind of like how Brandon Sanderson does in the Stormlight Archives, where he'll follow like Shallan, Shallan,
Shalon, yep.
yep, and Kaladin, and like shifting perspective that way, not necessarily being in first person, but you know following characters differently. That also could have given us insight into how the world saw Bella and then how Bella saw herself, which would have added to depth of character, right?
Yeah. I think I didn't think about it until now, but Alian's suggestion about dual perspective, I think, would give an opportunity for this book to grow as a romance. Um,
Absolutely.
the story is really lacking, in my opinion, for the why behind the romance. There's nothing there. It's Edward looks at Bella and goes, "Yeah, I'm in love,"
You
and
smell great.
Bella looks at Edward and goes, "Yeah, I'm in love too." But if you had that dual perspective, you could have events occur where it's like uh Edward sees Bella do something and he's all like, "Wow, I've never seen somebody who shares my interest in freaking piano music," or some dumb shit like that. And obviously, that's why he's drawn to her,
Yeah.
not, oh, she smells pretty.
She smells like beef. Yeah.
um,
Yeah, Midnight Sun's perspective certainly rounds out the points of view, giving kind of the point of view from Edward. Um, yeah, I I think that's really what if I were to see the best form of this story, it would be those two books merged. I think you know
yeah, I actually haven't read Midnight Sun. So I don't know what it's about.
it's Edward's perspective in Twilight.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's first person from his point of view. Um, yeah,
Interesting.
yep, yep. And then I just read as one of the side pieces. I just read the Afterlife, or sorry, Life and Death, and that is a gender bend of the story.
Is it?
Yep,
That's interesting.
sure.
Yeah,
It
Alian
wasn't
says,
great.
yeah, moving on.
Yeah.
Alian says it feels fated. You have to not see it as a love story of actually falling in love, but rather they are drawn together by fate.
Ooh,
I
you
disagree.
you disagree,
um,
really?
yeah,
Okay.
it's not. Fate is like, oh, I happen to have these shared interests. I happen to be thrown into these events. You know, you still have to have common ground. You don't get to just be like, oh yeah, I'm fated to be in love with you. You still have to have common ground, but you don't have to work for it. So I disagree, but I see
That's
where you're
fair.
coming from with the fated thing, Alien. I
I
just don't agree with it.
That's fair. I can see the convolution. I think that even Stephenie got into. I kind of feel half and half on that. I feel that I can see that they're like that fate, and that's what maybe Stephenie intended. But I also see like how she executed that as being a MacGuffin, and that was like the entire reason for anything to happen in this book. And so because the characters are like chasing this fated love, that's why they end up in a scenario where she's being hunted. You know, I don't know. I just I didn't see it from the fated perspective, and I could see an attempt at that. Um, but you're right. Also, it feels a little ham-fisted. So yeah,
Random tangent, I know, but saw that comment.
yeah. No, no, no. That's
uh,
a good comment. So let's see. We talked about world building. We talked about plot, characters. Um, did you have a favorite character?
um, yeah, I liked um, what's that kid's name? I forget. I'm really good with
You're.
names.
I know you're.
The kid,
Describe him.
the kid who almost killed Bella with his truck.
Tyler, I think.
Sounds right, yeah.
Eliane.
I liked him.
Was it Tyler? Don't know.
Who the question is, or the Jeopardy answer is, this character almost killed Bella Swan with his truck, and Edward stopped the truck in its tracks with supernatural strength, leading Bella to just kidding, I'll
Who
stop.
is Tyler?
Um,
Confirmed.
Tyler Crowley. Wow. First and last
Nice.
name. We got a pro on our hands here. um No, Tyler was my favorite character because he had
Because he almost
sound
hit her.
motivation. No, he had
He was
sound
so close
motivation
to
for the
ending the book. So close.
could avoid it the whole thing. No, just kidding. He had sound motivation for the way he acted. His whole like, I've got to make it up to Bella because he felt bad about almost killing her. You know, the psychotic thing where he's like, I'm gonna take Bella to prom. Yeah, he's a dumb teenager who's trying to make it up to Bella.
Mhm.
Thought he had a shot.
Mhm.
His motivations for his actions felt sincere in a way that I felt Bella and Edward's actions lacked.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I don't know if I necessarily agree with the lack of sincerity and feeling, but I I feel like that character is very real, Tyler, because of what you laid out. Let's see. I'm not sure who my favorite character is. Um, honestly, in my opinion, we really only get to see a little bit of anybody outside of Bella and Edward. Uh, I think that I would have to go with uh, I'd have to go with Charlie, mainly because
Yeah,
I don't know. I want to give him kind of like he's close to like my a peer, right? Like he's a dad and he's trying to do his best. And I think I think he like handles his kid like trying to fit in, and he handles like just the new change in lifestyle really well, and I can respect that. Um, I I didn't pick either of the like main characters, obviously, and I think that's kind of telling. I'm not really into either of those characters anymore. If you would have asked me in high school, it probably would have been like Edward or Jasper or something like that. Um, I do like the idea of what was her name, the pixie cut lady, the one
A-
who gets, huh?
Alice.
Yeah, Alice. I like Alice's power. I think that's kind of cool too. Um, but those characters certainly weren't my favorite.
Looks like likes Alice. That's a fair thing to say. It's kind of what you were saying too, Alan,
Yeah,
about it's hard to have a favorite character in this book. Um,
which is
I definitely agree. It's like this book to me felt more world buildy than anything.
unfortunately for a first book that I mean it had to resonate with its target demographic. I mean the book swept you know the world I guess by storm, right? I mean it was a viral hit, so it clearly hit a a good point in time. It struck the target demographic properly, and so I can't reasonably say that this wasn't a good book. Um, but I can say now as an adult, it's not for me.
I think something I've learned from reading Twilight and reading ACOTAR is and the fact that these books are insanely popular is that like I'm looking for something specific in a book. I like plot, I like growth, I like massive world building. These are all foundations that I'm like, this is what makes an excellent book. That doesn't necessarily mean that a book that doesn't have these things won't resonate with other people. And there's, I think, a huge market out there for books that let you jump in and take the place of that first person character, kind of like what LPAC was saying earlier. Especially in books where you have a fantasy setting and a romance. It's easy to put yourself in that character's perspective, allow your own personality to kind of take charge
Yeah,
and think about how you would act in that scenario.
a KOTOR was a first-person book, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So this makes sense. I mean, I think you're right in that. I can see a big market being there for like essentially first person shooters but for books. Being able to like live out a story through the eyes of the character. Yeah, sure.
Um, this is a question. We've never done this before, but
Uh-oh.
okay. This is a question for Allie Ann. You mentioned in the chat that you're ready to get in college for pop lit class after reading in high school for fun. Did you second time around, um, later in life, did you notice like this may or may not be being up your alley book wise, but did you notice a different perspective on the book? Do you think, what Alan and I were talking about the first person perspective thing, does that something you agree with where it's like you can put yourself in there and it resonates with you, or did you have a kind of similar experience to us where it's like Not so much for me now that I'm older.
Yeah, how did your view on the book change uh, uh, if you've done multiple readings? I think that's a good question. Um, I'll put out there. Uh, well, they're typing. Um, I don't know. Why don't you kind of dive a little more into your thoughts on things that have changed for you?
Yeah. I was definitely in high school when I first read this book. Um I think what captivated me more so the first time was kind of what we talked about with the lore of the vampires and stuff. I did want it to work out between Bella and Edward when I was a high schooler, you
Mm-hmm.
know. Um, but for me, this time around, it's like, I think reading it the first time and knowing how things end up, returning to it, there's not a lot there that I found enjoyable other than that suspense of how are things going to work out. What's the lore behind the vampires? Knowing that already, it's not something I enjoyed reliving as much as something about like an epic story of cataclysmic events,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
I think uh, I think where I really got hooked into this story was like I think the next book is that where the Volturi get fleshed out. I can't remember.
Yeah, yeah, kind of.
That's but that
The
that's the
third book
book.
more than the second, but yeah.
Those are the books that like I got really hooked. It looks like the second time around in college was Eliane's like realization that there wasn't much character development and um, that uh, that they really adore the story, um, suggesting that this series is a lot better like reading it back to back, like telling it as a full like binge watching instead of like reading just the individual book. I could respect
Yeah.
that, especially because it's a setup book. I think my major complaint about this book is that it is a strong setup book with way too many words. It could have been a novella. It really could have. I mean, what was the page count on this? Do you remember?
Uh, I'm not sure.
416.
Look up
She
real quick.
it took her 400 pages to tell that story. The
Yeah,
what is the average fantasy book is like 350 or something like that. And
I feel like a good baseline is 300.
yeah,
So like
and that's
300 and then extra for fluff.
and that's strong character development. You can see a very strong fantasy fiction what have you book at 350 pages with a very strong plot, very strong characters, you know, fleshed out secondaries and maybe a little bit on the tertiary characters. And that just didn't happen. And that's probably due to inexperience, again, because it's first book.
Yeah.
So,
Well, what now that we're kind of nearing the end of the
yeah.
night here, to kind of tilt it more towards the high note, what did you like about this book?
What did this book do right?
Yeah, or
Um,
what was your favorite part of this book?
this time around, uh, I think my favorite part of the book is probably the the baseball scenes. So when things like really start to pick up, because they start to get into the pace that I like, right? So they're playing baseball. The scene with the hunter coming in, that that's kind of my favorite part. It really shows a catalyst, and gets the characters like actually moving and out of this like lethargic state that they're in. How about you?
Yeah, I think just to comment on that baseball scene, like that felt um genuine, right? It felt like Stephenie Meyer said, "Here's some lore that I came up with," and it felt great because it was unique and totally relevant to the story. Like, oh yeah, these guys are hundreds of years old. What do they do for fun? Oh, they don't do normal human stuff for fun. They've done that 10,000 times by now. They go play baseball that makes such loud bangs that if there's no thunder, it's going to be obvious that supernatural shit's going down. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I really like
That's
that part.
Stephenie Meyer hitting her stride in the fantasy world.
Yeah.
Um, I really liked to kind of broaden it. I really liked Stephenie Meyer's contribution to fantasy here. Like she took a well-known aspect of fantasy, vampires, and said, "That's cool, but I'm going to do my thing with it. I'm going to make them totally different than what you expect, but you still have the horrors that you know and love from horror fantasy, but also you have this hopeful modern day vampire that feels more relatable to today's day and age."
Yeah.
Um, I think that aspect of this book was really well done
It's
and
very
made
commendable.
it interesting.
Yeah. Well, I think this book hit like right in the tail end of the stride for Underworld too. And Blade was finishing up around that time. It there was a big vampiric push around the time this book came out. So it definitely struck while the iron was hot, and telling a different vampire story uh, was absolutely, I can remember that being refreshing for sure. Yeah, very commendable work. So yeah,
Shall
um,
we jump? You got any more topics or shall
nope.
we jump into finals?
Yeah, I think we can jump into final thoughts.
Cool. What were your final
My
thoughts?
final thoughts. Well, you kind of changed them a little bit right there at the end, because I had forgotten about that completely. I think honestly, this book has a narrow demographic. Um, Not too narrow because it was very very popular, but I believe there's a fall off point for this book. Um, I think this is a good book for getting a strong reader into the next steps to storytelling and reading, right? So maybe this is a jump from like, I don't know, something in middle grade. It's the next step, right? Um, the story was a little flat for me. The characters were a little flat for me. Uh, she didn't use very efficient words. Would I recommend this book? Obviously. I mean that it's a pop culture book. If you haven't read this book, you should probably just read it. Um, I mean, it's it's short. It will be a slog if you've got a refined taste for books, um, and you're outside of the age group. Those are my thoughts. How about you?
Yeah, I would say this book did a couple of things really well, like establishing the lore and the setting. Lacked in character definition and growth. Uh, kind of what you said. For me, I don't think I would recommend this to adults necessarily. if you're just starting off on your literary journey, then yeah, grab it. Um, I don't know if I'd agree with if you haven't read it and you're past the demographic to read it. You can pick it up online. People will tell you everything you want to know
Yeah,
about it.
that's fair.
But
That's fair.
I didn't personally enjoy it as an adult, but I can understand how the niche community of ACOTAR and Twilight lovers love it. It's just not for me.
That's fair. All right. Well, what what are some side pieces you've been reading?
Yeah, so um I finished Twilight and jumped immediately into my Stormlight Archives reread for in preparation for Wind and Truth in December. Wind and Truth, Book 5 of Stormlight Archives. Buy it, December. It comes out in December. You can read the first few chapters now. Buy it while you can. Anyway, I also made a little bit of progress on White Sands, Brando Sando, as well as started in on the new. Oh my gosh, we were talking about it. The the book series you like that you posted about.
What?
The
Wow. Which
oh my
one?
gosh,
I
I'm
love
blanking so
series.
hard.
I love
I
series.
know, right?
What are you
You
talking
talked about it
about
in the
the
Discord.
Skullmancy?
No,
Oh,
the
the
one with the
dragon?
towers and Caden Corin's
Oh,
Corin
oh, Ascension.
Corin Cadence.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Arcane.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Arcane Ascension.
yeah.
Yeah. Book five, six, whatever book it is.
He put out the last two fairly quickly within a
Yeah.
year turnaround. So, yeah.
The one that just came out. I
Yep.
started that. Yep.
Okay.
Gosh, man, I'm really good at remembering things here. What about you?
Oh,
What have you been reading?
I've been crushing through the Wheel of Time book series. I've been enjoying it, but like Brandon Sanderson, those books need a what do you call it? A palate cleanser every once in a while. So the Twilight uh, book and then the Gender Bend Life and Death have been kind of my palate cleanser. Haven't been stoked about those, so I am reading the second book in the Skullamancy series. So far, pretty good. I like the first one, and the second one's working its way out to be pretty good. So, and then I'll probably go back to Wheel of Time. So, I think I'm like book 6 in Wheel of Time, book 6 or 7.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, yeah. I just finished
Nice.
like Heaven's Fire or something like that. I don't know why it was called that. That was a weird title for that book. But yeah, so
I finished book 3 a while back, pausing my journey until Wind and Truth,
that's fair.
till
That's
after that.
it has it completely stalled my idea of going through and reading Stormlight Archives again. So I
Yeah.
may just slam through the most recent book and then call it a day. So I kind of get a little sick of Kaladin's bullshit. So
There's a lot of words to slog through there.
yeah, yeah,
It does kind of get long. It is hard to smash Sanderson into the time frame there. So
yeah,
get
yeah.
a little burned out after a while.
So yeah, but All right.
Yeah, when wizards follow fools. That's the book that I
There you
started.
go. There you go. So yeah, we don't have any thing to announce for our next book. We're going to do. Uh, we need to pick the December book still. Um, Look at our Patreon for the vote there. It will be uh, a book uh, that we passed up, right? I believe that's what
Yep.
December is. It's a book that was voted on but never made the cut, and there will be three there, and we'll pick one of them and read them for December. November is going to be our. We're hoping to do a Stormlight Archive like fireside chat type thing, conversation about the story and preparation uh, for the new book. Story, characters, world. Um, Look for more information on when that will be. I'm not sure if we're doing it live or if we're recording it. So yeah, we'll see what happens after the new year though. That'll be exciting. Uh,
Yeah.
so
Definitely if you can join us potentially for our Stormlight stream.
yeah,
Again, nerd out about Sanderson, super hardcore. So
yep, yep. I'm guessing that that stream is going to turn into a strong just nerding out spoiler session for those who want to kind of refresh before the new book comes out. So, yeah. If you want to follow our activity and figure out what books we're reading for when, go check out DM's Table. DMstable.com is where you can find any of the information on what we're doing, what we've been up to, and what we've done in the past. You can also, again, go read some books on Audible. dmstable.com/audible for a free month and access to a fantastic catalog of books. Um, I think that's about it. What do you got, Adam?
yeah.
Yep. You froze for a second. All right. All right. Well,
Yeah, you froze too. I was like, oh crap, my internet's
yeah.
crapping out. I don't want to talk over Alan in case he can still hear me.
It could be me. It could be me. Who knows? All right. Well, let's call it here. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Thanks for the conversation, Elpac and Alianne. Uh, it was a fun stream to talk about a flat book.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, guys. It was a good one. I hope we didn't dissuade anybody too much if this is a big book of yours, but um, us us epic fantasy lore nerds are, you know,
Left
stuck
wanting
in our
more.
ways, I guess.
That's right. All right. All right. Thank you guys so much, and we will see you next book. See you guys.
See ya.